Welcome back to the Shabbos Treasures series. I'm Gila Ross, host of the Power Up podcast, and I'm here together with my co-host,
Rabbi Samuel Ross, and we are delighted to be able to share a weekly idea that you can take into your Shabbos and upgrade and beautify immediately. Enjoy.
So we're gonna talk about something. Again, it's something that you probably think doesn't have much to do with you, but it actually comes up more frequently than we at first think. So what am I talking about? We're talking about plant growth, okay? Whether we do this by sowing, by planting, by watering, or any other means, and this applies to any plant, indoor plants, outdoor plants as well. So I'm going to throw out some questions to you. Can I place a seed on mud? Not in mud, but on mud.
I'll say no. It's the same as putting it in mud.
Okay, we're going to come back to it. So we have one no. Let's see what the other questions are, and then we'll get back to it. What about planting a seed on a well-used path? What could be the problem with that, Rabbi?
Well, no, because people will tread it. Will tread on it and therefore put it into the soil.
Oh, good thinking.
We'll have to see in the end which way we go, but it's interesting you're making a differentiation possibly between the mud and the path. Okay, what about my favorite one? Again, my favorite one. When the child, we would never do this, the child gets fed up with the last bit of apple and throws the core onto the grass. Any possible problems here?
You feed in the grass.
Oh, yes, Maddie.
Feed in the grass.
Okay.
So what could be wrong with feeding the grass?
It'll grow.
Okay, good. So I have to see how we get to the answers, but we're thinking in very smart ways over here as to what could be the issue.
Jeremy likes it. I think Jeremy's venturing on a yes, no.
No. I'm just trying to think of all the various different melachot.
Yeah.
Right.
And how likely it is that one of them is going to forbid.
Right.
For those of you who were with us last week or heard the podcast, we dealt with quite a bit of gardening last week. You know, this actually might even be useful. Again, let's just quickly do this. Let's just quickly share where we're up to. Can you all see? This is what we shared last week. The order of bread, which we explained. Some say it's the order of dyes. Some say it's the order of bread. But you get to the same end product. So last week we looked at plowing, right? And we basically explained that all the examples last week were things where you're loosening the soil, right? Now that doesn't matter whether you scrape a chair over the mud or whether you make a hole in the mud, whatever it is. This week we're moving into Zorea, which is sowing. So we're moving from plowing into sowing, seemingly nothing to do with us.
Does anyone want to read the description?
On over here.
I'll read that. The grain seed was placed or merely dropped upon the soil, where it would eventually sprout and grow.
Right. So that gives us a little bit of a starting point to sort of figure out whether these things could or could not be done on Shabbos. Another question for you guys happens in the summer. Apparently there are places, Hayden will confirm, where the sun shines and you can actually go out in the garden and have a picnic.
That's true.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're thinking South Africa. That's why you.
Yes, we're not jealous at all. So are you allowed to wash your hands over the grass when you're having a picnic? That's something.
Because you want to do your own Netilas Yadayim or whatever it is.
Maddie's saying no.
Maddie doesn't like it.
All right, well, we will see.
Which leads us into the next question.
Oh, this is a good one.
Yes.
Let's say you have a sukkah.
And some of you, I know that some of you.
I wasn't actually saying no. I was shaking my head at Sadie, but sorry.
Well, Sadie was saying no, right? Yeah. Okay, we'll find out whether that was well timed, right? Okay, so some of us have a sukkah with a roof. Now, it happens from time to time that it may rain on Sukkot. Are you allowed to open up the roof? Because when you do that, all the water that's on the roof of the sukkah is going to fall onto the grass.
Something that none of us would ever have thought about. You know, when wonderful bits we're going to the sukkah, but 1 second, based on the definition that Hayden just read of sowing, where we're promoting plant growth, where does that leave us with opening our sukkah roof?
Surely you should be able to do that because it's a mitzvah to be in the sukkah.
Interesting. What do the rest of you say about that?
Well, I'd hope you can do it because our trampling was quite full of rain.
Oh, it was just yours. Mine was perfectly dry.
Is this to do with the kind of the extent to which these are sort of necessary byproducts of what's happening? So, you know, to use the sukkah example, it's you can't really avoid that happening, and you're not doing it with the intention of it happening. And linking in with what Jeremy was saying, to what extent is it really going to have a significant effect?
Richard, you're bringing up something very important. And I doubt someone asked a similar question last week in a different context. I don't remember what the context was, but I think this is a really important principle. So I want to repeat the principle. When it comes to the laws of Shabbos, in particular the biblical ones, intention in that way is going to be irrelevant. Meaning, in the best, I'm not dealing with a specific case right now, but I think the principle is really important. In the best case scenario, you're going to end up making it rabbinically forbidden, which for our purposes, for most circumstances, won't make any difference. We still can't do it. So just because I don't want something to happen, but I know it's going to happen, it might well still be biblically forbidden. It might be reduced under some circumstances to rabbinically forbidden. But either way, there are very few circumstances that is going to get us out of something. We're gonna have to be either more creative. Again, creative is almost the wrong word. We're not messing with halacha. That's not what we're trying to do. You know, it's with law. You're not trying to mess with it. But it could be that sometimes you'll have 2 or 3 variables when they work together. Perhaps that will be a different circumstance or something like that. One by itself is very, very rarely, if ever, going to save us. I'm going to give you the one time it will save us. It would not work in this case. It would not work in this case, but I think in the case that someone asked me last week, it may have worked, which is, if I don't know that something will happen, you know, it may well not happen. I don't want it to happen. I don't care if I don't particularly want it. And crucially, I don't know it's going to happen. It might happen, but it probably won't. It may not. That will quite often get you out of it. I'll tell you the example. It's a theory, but it's an important theory. The Gemara says in Shabbos that when you cut the head of a chicken, it's going to come off. Like, you can't say, well, I didn't want it to, or it's going to come off. Like, you can't prevent it. You are going to kill the chicken. So it's the same thing with the sukkah. Again, we haven't yet told you yes or no, but in practice, if it is going to come on the grass, just because I don't want it to go on the grass, it will go on the grass. Like, that's not going to save me by itself. Okay, I just wanted to deal with the theory, because that theory is really, really important.
As opposed to, let's say, if your sukkah is not directly on the grass, but it's next to the grass.
Giving the answer? Yes. Okay.
No, and you're lifting the thing, and it may or may not splash on the thing. So, right, there's sometimes a situation when it's definitely going to happen, and sometimes where it may happen, it may not. Right, like we you know, there's it's likely to, but it's not definite that it's going to happen.
But can I just say, that scenario though,
sorry,
if it's already raining, so if the ground is already wet.
Should we jump into the answers? Or
I think that these guys are so on fire, and
okay.
Or maybe they want to go to sleep already, that they're already giving us some really again. I'm
going to throw out one more question before we do it, and that is there a difference between flowers and plants in halachic status on Shabbat?
And this is such a relevant question. You know, some questions are like, will my kids throw the apple core on the grass? Which, does happen on occasions.
No kids do that.
Never happens. Well, but they might do it behind our back, and we might get fed up with our.
Try and get them to eat the apple first.
Yeah, that's also an issue. But flowers and plant pots are so relevant because if we've got them, we're probably going to want to water them. Guests may bring them to our home and give them to us on Shabbos. What do we do with them? If we want to be a little bit more Shabbos observant, can we put them in water? Can we even touch them? One of the most relevant cases that's out there is flower. We'll see whether there is a difference. Okay, let's go back to again. Let's just first go over the principle. Last week, again, we started with the loosening of the soil, which was that's where we started from. Sorry, the
plowing. Yeah.
The plowing. That was what it was called. Okay, now we're doing the sowing. So the sowing is not loosening of the soil; it is the initiation or the promotion of the plant growth. And there are many ways that you could do this. You could do it by sowing, planting, watering, or any other means. And I'm just going to say this before we carry on. A lot of the things that we saw last week, for example, weeding. Weeding was a problem of plowing. It would also be a problem of sowing. So there are some things that are overlaps. No question about it. But that is the thing. Again, we'll write this all up and send this in the group afterwards, but it's the initiation or promotion of plant growth. Okay, and now we're going to see with all of the cases that we went through how.
All right, so do we think that placing the seed on mud is a problem?
Yes.
Yes, you're right. Placing the seed on a mud is a problem because that's how it's going to grow. What about on a well-used path?
Again, now that we know the principle.
I'm going to say yes, because it could still grow.
You're saying yes, it is a problem.
So let's think this one out. If it's well used, what will happen to it? When I am walking down this well-used path, 30 seconds after you're walking down it, what's going to happen to it?
You could kick the seed away.
It's going to get continued.
Or stand on it, destroy it.
People are going to stand it, destroy it, kick it up. Is that therefore, again, what was the malacha? The work was you're promoting plant growth. Will it in effect promote plant growth if people are trampling on it the whole time?
No.
So that's why it will not be the problem. The same is with planting a seed in the desert.
That's a great example, Gilla. Great example.
If you ever find yourself in the desert on Shabbos and looking for the Shabbos afternoon activity.
By the way, I do have to add this in because I want to be a little bit difficult. Not all seeds are okay to be touched for a different reason. Some are muksa. It depends whether there's benefit from the seed. So we'd have to be speaking about the type of seed, then in theory, maybe you could eat or something like that. Otherwise, you're going to have a problem that a seed could be, if there's no use to it in any event. So let's assume that the afternoon activity is a seed in the desert, this well-used path that is not.
There you go. You got your Shabbos afternoon in the desert.
Yeah. When are we going?
Just remember to take, a packet of those Israeli pumpkins. What are they? Pumpkin seeds? I don't know. Sunflower seeds. All right, what's the next question?
Your kid, forget about your kid. Why are you hiding behind the kids? You didn't like the apple.
Finish the apple.
Your friend, your spouse, your parent is not watching and you throw it into the grass. Is that okay?
Oh, Hayden doesn't like it. Hayden, why not?
Because it could still grow.
Yes, the seed in the ground, exactly, the seed in the fruit or the vegetable could germinate in the ground and grow.
So next time your kid wants to throw it, you've actually got a halachic reason to tell them that they shouldn't be throwing it. Not just Richard's reason to get them to eat the apple.
Ask them to wait until after Shabbat, and then they can plant the seeds in the ground and watch them grow if you've got green fingers.
Okay, now let's go to our picnic. We've got our picnic. And by the way, this is not so unusual. I mean, maybe it is, but if some of you remember last year, we were able to do this 3 weeks running. 3 weeks running, when they made the rule of 6, you can have 30 outdoors. We were able to have 30 people outdoors in our garden, 3 weeks running on Shabbos. Hashem gave us 3 hot weeks running in the summer. I think quite a few of you were able to join us for one of those 3 weeks. What's the story? Am I allowed to do that? Am I allowed to have my tables outside, maybe sitting outside on a blanket? What do we say, guys?
Question was washing our hands over the grass. So you know to do that? Yeah.
Just remember the question?
Apparently not.
What was the question?
Are you allowed to wash your hands over the grass?
you've been really holy and you're washing your hands for bread, la da 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 da, and all that. But are you allowed to do it if you're having a picnic outdoors and the water's going to go on the grass?
Is that not helping it grow?
It is helping it grow. You're right. So Bev is right. You cannot get water on the grass, and you got to be careful.
I'll tell you a little funny story. Last year, when we did our Shabbos meals in the garden, somebody very righteous saw the picture, and we took the picture before Shabbos, and he's like, "Oh, I don't know if you can do that because water's going to spill on the grass." So the first thing that I explained to him was something that Hayden said. I said, "I'm not worried about it because we've had a lot of rain this week, and it's already saturated. And rain onto saturation is not necessarily a problem." I said, but also I said, there it's one of the circumstances where it's not that I'm doing something that will happen. I don't even know if it's going to happen. It's unintentional. I said, under those circumstances, it's fine. And I believe it was absolutely fine. And so you can have a picnic outdoors. Again, just be careful. Don't especially spill water on the floor. Be careful where the drinks go. But if that's
so is that because the grass could grow, or you could spill a seed what you're eating, and then that could grow?
You could, even the grass.
Either would.
So if you're having a picnic on the beach, for example, it would be okay.
Right. Again, the sand in practice is muksa. You shouldn't be sitting on it, but you could stand it. Use that in an unusual way. In terms of the seed, you could put that there. But in terms of your garden, you don't want it to grow.
Okay.
The next question is, what's the next question?
The sukkah roof.
The one that we were all wondering about.
What do we do about the sukkah roof? I'm going to open my sukkah, and hey presto, I'm soaking the grass. What now? So
it is very possible that you're allowed to do it, because if you think about it, it's rained and the grass is already waterlogged. It's already water saturated, so you're not really helping it grow at that point. The other option is, if again, it depends on whether your sukkah is able to open it over the pavement, and then if it splashes on the grass, it splashes, but then it's not directly over it. But even if you're on it, it's probably fine because you're not really helping the grass grow at that point.
Again, assuming that you've had a serious rainfall the night before and it's properly saturated, then it'll be okay. But if it weren't and it just rained last night, it hadn't rained in a week, unfortunately you probably wouldn't be able to use that sukkah, because there is no principle in Judaism that because I've got a mitzvah right now, I can push something else aside. If my mitzvah is I've got to be careful not to break Shabbos, how I open the sukkah. It is what it is. Hashem doesn't want me, if it would be a violation of Shabbos, to violate Shabbos in order to eat in my sukkah. As much as that might not be so popular, but that's the reality. It doesn't make sense. I should violate a mitzvah to do another one. It just doesn't work like that. So, but again, the circumstances are, if it's saturated or if it's going to go onto a gravel path or concrete first, then it might spill into it or something like that afterwards, as long as it's not direct. A clever idea that a lot of people do is they'll get a tarp and they'll put it on the grass in case it falls down, something like that. So the water doesn't go through. Okay, great. Okay, so we've done the sukkah roof. This is an interesting
Similarly, you wouldn't be allowed to cover a plant with a blanket. If, let's say, you wanted to cover a plant or with a blanket to protect it from, let's say, either the cold or the sunlight, you wouldn't be able to do that on Shabbos because you are helping it grow.
Little plant, it's going to get too frostbitten. So that doesn't work. Okay, now we're going to come to our final two cases. The plants and the flowers. Again, up to 20 minutes ago, we all the plants and flowers. What could be more Shabbos friendly than that? Especially to make someone happy. But let's start evaluating this based on the principles that we've just learned. Let's look at plants first. Again, what's the principles we've just learned? Is that anything which is going to promote plant growth is out. So let's look at a plant pot. What do we think about let's make it as straightforward as possible. A perforated plant pot. I've got a nice big hole in the bottom of my plant pot.
Rabbi, are you allowed to give a plant to someone who you know is going to kill them? It's not very good at plants.
That is such a good question.
I always keep plants alive. I don't know what you mean. Don't know what you gesture.
Not that we know anyone like that, but I'm just, throwing that question.
I keep my kids alive and my dog. That's the main thing.
That is exactly the main thing. So, Reverend, what do you think? Does that make a difference?
Oh my goodness, the way that this is going. Okay, let's go back to our plant pots. It's perforated, let's say. What's the story? Let's make it as simple as possible. I'm in my garden and I get my plant pot. Can I put it down on the grass? I'm going to make it as simple as possible. Why no, Maddie? Unless you're saying no to one of your daughters.
Because if the moisture comes out of the bottom of the pot, it'll help the grass grow.
So absolutely. In this case, we didn't even need Stephen, who would have. Because
you laughing at Beverly?
Last week he helped us a lot with the science and technology, but the reality is that your plant pot on top of the grass is going to get nutrients from it. So much so that even if you suspend it, like you put it like on a, I don't know, high up, but it's over grass, you couldn't do that either.
So, Robert, 1 minute, just to clarify, we're talking about the plant pot, because there's some plant pots that don't have holes inside them, and there's some plant pots that underneath it, they do have holes in it. So we're talking about the plant pots that have holes in it.
Once you're going outdoors, you're getting yourself into a lot of trouble with plant pots. Getting yourself into a lot of trouble.
So by artificial plants, it's much easier.
Yeah, maybe it's like this. In order for it not to be a problem of getting nutrients from below, you have real division. Like some sort of, I don't know, some sort of brick or tile or something like that. Otherwise, halachically gets the nutrients. And that, believe it or not, that's not just an outdoor problem, it's an indoor problem too. So again, indoors, you've got your floor. So, okay, that's not going to go down to the soil underneath it. But nevertheless, once it starts getting perforated or once you start taking it outdoors, in halakhic literature, it's even discussed whether it's a clever idea to touch a plant pot for this and other reasons. Okay, so maybe you could touch it and put it down inside your house, but just be wary that, especially once you go outdoors, I would say once it's got no hole and it's indoors, okay. But once you're outdoors or once it's indoors with a hole, there'll be okay. What about flowers? What's the story of flowers? What's the difference between flowers and a plant pot?
Is there a difference?
Is there a difference?
Well, I mean, initially, I'm thinking no difference. But then I'm thinking Shabbos flowers. So you put Shabbos flowers in a vase with water, but they're not going to grow.
They will.
There you go. There's the difference. So a plant is, once it's cut, a flower is, once they're cut, you're right, they're not going to grow. They're only going to go one way from there.
Yeah.
The water will preserve it a little bit longer, but it's not. So once it's detached, it's a little bit, it's different. So it's not actually muksa like a plant is. So you're allowed to move them, but you wouldn't be allowed to put it into water, right? Like you're allowed to put it into water before Shabbos, and
before Shabbos, yeah.
On your table, you can take it off your table, you can
move it
around wherever you want it to be. But if you got on Shabbos, for example, you wouldn't be able to put them into water.
Okay, that makes sense.
From scratch, not just for these reasons, for other reasons as well. It's called like an extra bit of work. Let's just quickly sum up what we've said. We've looked this week at sowing, which is the initiation or promotion of plant growth. This can be accomplished by sowing, planting, watering, or any other means. You don't put a seed into mud. You could put it onto a well-used path or into a desert, because it's not going to survive there. Careful not to get water on grass. Careful not to have a kid throw an apple core onto grass. When it comes to the sukkah, try and make sure water doesn't fall onto water that's not saturated. With flowers, you should put them into water before Shabbos, and then on Shabbos you can absolutely move the vase around. When it comes to a plant pot outdoors, it's a really, really big problem. You shouldn't be touching it, shouldn't be moving it. It's going to be muktzah amongst other issues. Indoors, there are those who maybe say it's not muktzah indoors, but it's definitely don't stop moving it outdoors. If it doesn't have a hole in it, maybe you can put it down, but I wouldn't do that much more than that. So there we have it. So-called nothing to do with us, but we've had a couple of different weeks dealing with gardening. I think next week we're going to look at the other way of doing of elements of gardening, taking things out. So that'll be the third part of this. Okay, guys, thank you so much. So wonderful having so many of you with us.
Thank you for taking the time to listen. I'd love to hear your thoughts and your feedback. You can get in touch with me. You can find me on Instagram. It's Gila Ross. And please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out. Thank you for your time and have a wonderful day.